Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the Dark Oak. Today, I tell you the story of Amy Lynn Bradley, who vanished in 1998 while with her family aboard what should have been a dream Caribbean cruise.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month, through our charity called the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and our sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be a part of the movement, head over to thedarkoak.com or stay with us until the end of the episode and we will give you all of the details.
Okay, Cynthia, first things first. We need to talk about the Holy Grail, Unsolved Mysteries.
Did you see that there's a new season?
Okay, that's what I want to talk to you about. First, I want to talk about the Unsolved Mysteries podcast. Have you ever listened to the Unsolved Mysteries podcast?
Possibly. I feel like, is it like actually Unsolved Mysteries brand?
It is. It's Unsolved Mysteries brand, and it's hosted by Mark French, I think is his name. Not as good as Robert Stack.
Okay.
Obviously. But it's been going for a few years now, and this is their final season. They're not going to do Unsolved Mysteries podcast anymore, which I guess isn't a big blow to you. And honestly, they weren't my favorite Unsolved Mysteries podcasts just because they're shorter. So they're like 30-minute episodes, which don't go into like a huge amount of detail. But, you know, I'm an Unsolved Mysteries girl. So any amount of Unsolved Mysteries, I'm like, give me the things. So they're ending. And then the new season of Unsolved Mysteries came out on Netflix. So you have not seen it yet, right?
I think I watched two. One of them, I was like, oh, I really hate to cover a case that just came out on Unsolved Mysteries. And I really want to cover this case. Have you watched them all?
Well, okay. Which case did you love? We're not going to give spoilers, so don't worry.
I think the title of it is The Severed Head.
Okay. Loved that one. Also loved Body in the Basement.
That one really had staircase vibes. Michael Peterson. Yeah. In fact, I watched it the whole time and I just kept saying to my husband, well, I don't want to give spoilers, but I was just kind of surprised by what I was seeing and I had a lot to say about it.
Here's my take on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. We waited an entire year, like an entire season for Netflix to come out with Unsolved Mysteries. Mm-hmm. Again, Holy Grail, right?
Sure. Yeah. The OG.
The OG. But they came out with 5 episodes.
Yeah.
So we waited an entire year. Mm-hmm. They came out with 5 episodes. One of them is Jack the Ripper.
I didn't watch that. It did not pull me in.
Yeah.
I've only seen the 2 I've only seen the 2 you mentioned. Those were the 2 that looked
okay. So Jack the Ripper, Wah Wah, and Mothman?
I might watch that.
Well, of course. I mean, it's a cryptid. I mean, it's cool. But if you're Unsolved Mysteries and you have an Unsolved Mysteries budget, are you going to pick the low-hanging fruit of like the Mothman and like Jack the Ripper?
Yeah. What was the 5th one?
The 5th one was an interesting case. It's a case, I think it was in the 40s. It's basically an unsolved murder of a young girl. Which absolutely, like, we should try to solve it. I don't have an issue with that one. To me, that's a neutral. I didn't find it as compelling as The Head and The Body in the Basement. I thought those were really pretty interesting. I was like, okay, all right, that they did the work on those. I had never heard of them before. They are so weird. Like, I love them. But then, I don't know, like the other 2, the Jack the Ripper one, I did watch it and I was like, okay. It's nothing that we haven't already heard like 100 times. Right. And I did like that all the narrators were British. That kind of made me excited. But I don't know. I was a little disappointed. All that to say, I think I was a little disappointed.
I have to tell you, I have been slightly disappointed in the whole Unsolved Mysteries just reboot in general. I've watched them all. I'm happy to have them. We've even covered some of the cases on some of the previous seasons, but they don't hold the same, I guess, nostalgia. I don't even really know as the original show did for me. And so a lot of the episodes for me are hit and miss. I haven't seen Jack the Ripper. I'll have to watch that one. I will say, though, that the Severed Head one, though, was pretty like, whoa, this is weird. I truly am still have no idea.
Oh, it's baffling. baffling.
what happened with that case. The body in the basement too. Again, I was just like, ooh, I don't know what happened there. But 5 episodes for a whole season? That
this is what
seems
I'm
very
saying.
light.
Well, and Florida weather, here is weird. We're getting truly into like the tropical rainy season. And so we had a truly like crazy rainy weekend. And I was genuinely looking forward to it. I'm like, I plan to stay in my pajamas, drink coffee, and binge watch Unsolved Mysteries. And then I only got 5 episodes, and 2 of them I was like, meh, I don't know about that. So all to say, I was actually highly disappointed. So I just wanted to voice my opinion. We don't often talk about, pop culture kind of stuff, but it's Unsolved Mysteries. We got to talk about it.
I mean, yeah, we're a mystery podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I will say? At least we have, how many episodes do we have now here at the Dark Oak?
Oh, I think today, we're up to about 60.
That's what I was going to say, about 60. You have approximately 60 hours of quality Dark Oak content that you can go listen to, and even more over in our Patreon.
You know what? I had actually not meant for this to be, a shout out to the Dark Oak, but I love that you took it there.
Hey.
And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Yeah, you guys should check out some of those Patreon episodes. We've got some good ones over there. We did share the Cynthia Anderson case, like a little like sneak peek, but we've got some other really good ones, some that I requested because Cynthia has some really great writing and she's kind of been doing the majority of our Patreon cases, but they're like at my request. So, I take a little credit for them, but some really great cases over there. So, you know what? Who knows? Maybe our partnership will one day supersede the popularity of Unsolved Mysteries.
Just like I wouldn't be able to do this podcast without you. I don't think Unsolved Mysteries is Unsolved Mysteries without Robert Stack.
You know what? I do feel like that. I do feel that in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not the same.
No, that's true. All right, well, let's get into our own case today, now that I've vented about the newest season.
And given me something to watch. I'm going to go home and watch Mothman.
Listen, I'm not saying I'm not going to watch it.
I gotcha.
All right. Now, Cynthia, sadly, our summer is about to come to an end.
I am not one of those moms who like wants my kids to go back to school. I very much like them all like around me all the time. Not that I don't enjoy my breaks, because I also need that, but like the back to school time kind of makes my heart hurt.
Back to school is upon us. So in honor of that, I wanted to throw in one more great summer episode. So in true summer form, I'm bringing to you the case of Amy Lynn Bradley, who disappeared while on board a Caribbean cruise. Now, Cynthia, I already know you have a few fears or phobias about travel and possibly boats in particular. So I'm going to gingerly provide some details about cruise safety. According to the website Maritime Injury Report, approximately 400 people have gone missing from cruise ships in the past 20 years.
Oh, I would have guessed like every year. I'm serious. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. I absolutely would have been like, this is very common.
Okay, well, this should make you feel a lot more comfortable.
No, it does. That actually is kind of a relief to hear, because that's 400 too many, but 420 years, I'd have to do the math, but.
No, statistically, it's pretty rare.
Okay.
It's pretty rare. And according to Cruise Lines International Association, of the 212 listed as having gone overboard, because again, 400 have gone missing, but 212 have been reported as going overboard, 48 people were rescued.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
So your chances of literally falling off the boat and like being lost to sea is astronomically low. And that's especially important when you realize that approximately 30 million people take cruise ships vacations every year.
Okay. Well, you know what? Statistically. Yeah, the odds are good that you're going to be okay.
So do you feel comfortable now taking a big old cruise?
I would. It would never be my first choice.
Okay.
Of travel or vacation ever. But yeah, hey, you offer me a cruise, I'll go on a cruise.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, in this situation, though, statistics were not on the side of the Bradley family in March of 1998. The Virginia family of 4, including Ron and Iva Bradley, and their 2 children, 23-year-old Amy and her 21-year-old brother, Brad, had been gifted a Caribbean cruise from Ron's employer.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, Ron worked at a very successful insurance company, and as an extra bonus, he had gifted this week-long cruise to Ron's family.
That's really nice.
This cruise aboard Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Sea would depart from San Juan, Puerto Rico on Saturday, March 21st, would travel to Aruba on Monday, March 23rd, and then would arrive in Curacao on March 24th, then go onward to St. Martin, St. Thomas, and finally dock back in San Juan a week later on March 28th. The whole Bradley family was very close, but Amy was particularly close with her brother Brad. The two were more like best friends. It's really sweet. I've looked at a bunch of family photos, and in every one, they're like hugging and giving each other like little pecks on the cheek. They have given speeches to each other at their birthday celebrations. It really is so heartwarming to see how much they loved each other. Amy was described as being very sporty and very athletic. She was a basketball player and a former swim coach. And after graduating high school, she was offered many scholarships, but she chose to stay close to home, majoring in sports science, and she planned to obtain her master's in sports psychology. And I actually had to look that up because I wasn't really sure what sports psychology meant. But it's the idea of how being in the right headspace can help you perform better, and the way sports helps our brains form. And anyway, it was really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, a really interesting field of study. Even though Amy was an excellent swimmer, remember she had been on several swim teams in her youth and actually coached the swim team, she was hesitant to go on this cruise because she was apprehensive of being on the open ocean. Knowing what we know now, I wonder if her fear was really of the ocean or if she had some kind of intuition about what was going to happen on the cruise. And I particularly want to get your feedback on this because you've been pretty open in the past about having visions or feelings, like premonitions sometimes. And I want to know what your thoughts are here.
If I have any negative feeling about anything, I immediately go to, is this an intuition? Should I not do? I think I told you the other day, I booked a flight and then was like, oh, I don't know, I'm scared. And I had to literally ask myself, okay, are you just allowing other stresses in life to like affect the way you feel about this? Or do you need to be listening to yourself? And I was able to decide, no, this is just my anxiety going crazy or whatever. I kind of feel like it's an individual situation.
Yeah.
And only the individual themselves would be able to say for sure, how do I really feel about this? I will tell you, it's eerie for sure. I mean, eerie for sure.
Isn't that weird? And I don't know, maybe Amy was in the same headspace as you. She kind of reevaluated how she was feeling. And at her family's urgence, she overcame that fear and said, okay, this isn't rational. Maybe she read some of these cruise statistics. Was like, it's astronomically low that anything nefarious or bad could happen to me on this cruise. And so she decided to join her family. And the Bradley family joined 300 other passengers and crew members on what really should have been a dream vacation. The cruise left without incident, and the Bradleys were enjoying their time aboard the ship. Brad and Amy had even made friends aboard the ship, including a few members of the ship's band called the Blue Orchid. Now, Saturday night aboard the ship was formal night, and I know you haven't cruised a ton, but each ship's itinerary will usually include some kind of formal night. You're shaking your head, so you're familiar. Did you participate in formal night when you went?
I don't remember like dressing up to the nines, but I do remember like the dinners being made kind of a big deal, and like photographs before the dinners and
bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo, all of that. So it's normally black tie attire, like an adult prom almost.
Right.
And Amy and Brad absolutely dressed the part. Both of them were dressed to a T in very sharp black outfits. Brad was in a tuxedo and Amy was in a black gown. If you research this case at all, you'll see a photo that was taken by the ship's photographer of the brother-sister duo. And hauntingly, these photos were the last photos confirmed of Amy.
I'm very familiar with the photo specifically of her. I can like see
In the
her
black
in her
dress.
sleeveless, and she's got dark short hair.
Yeah,
If
I
I
think it's
remember
got like
correctly.
the spaghetti straps, but yes, it's that very like
Okay.
90, like the like a shift dress kind of
Yes.
look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the two look so cute together. It's just heartwarming.
Oh, well, yeah, every parent's dream.
Exactly.
My question is, are men renting tuxedos to go on cruises? Because when you asked me if I participated in formal night, like, I don't remember going out and buying a dress, but I also wouldn't have showed up in jeans if everybody else was in a ball gown. I just have no memory of it. Yeah, no.
You know, the way I look at it is, where else do you get to dress up and wear something amazing?
Oh, well, see, I think my job, we did those kinds of things. So for me, I think it lost its shine.
Well, I still like to dress up. I mean, I guess I could wear my ball gown as I'm homeschooling my kids or scooping out the chicken coop, but you know, that chance has eluded me so far.
There's always tomorrow.
Always tomorrow. Now, as I mentioned, Amy looked beautiful in this dress, and she was getting a lot of attention from both passengers and crew. This seemed to be a bit of a trend. At one point, Ron Bradley, her father, remembered one of the waiters asking for Amy's name. Like one of the waiters came up to their dinner table and asked Ron Amy's name and reportedly said that they, in quotation marks, Ron wasn't exactly sure who they was referring to, but that they wanted to take her to Carlos and Charlie's restaurant during the ship's dock in Aruba. When Ron asked Amy about this, she responded with, "I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do anything with the crew members. And as a matter of fact, that kind of creeps me out a little bit."
It is strange that random crew members would be like, hey, you want to get off this boat and go somewhere shady with me? Maybe not shady, but it's shady to her. She doesn't know where she is.
It's shady to her. I did go on a good amount of cruises with my family when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. I will say I did in one particular situation like befriend like the ship DJ. He was this Canadian guy that was about my age. And so after he was done working, and I remember us just sitting on the pool deck and kind of chatting and talking about, just life, the way like 22-year-olds do.
Sure.
And I, at the time, maybe it was just my naivety, but I didn't feel like there was anything bad about it. So I don't know. I think it just depends, again, on the individuals. She felt that this particular situation was a little off.
Right. And they're wanting her to get off the boat and go somewhere in town.
Right.
As opposed
Which
to
I do think is different.
Yeah, hanging out, on a deck.
And I'll just throw in this little tidbit here. I don't know if you realize, but the last place that Natalie Holloway went was also Carlos and Charlie's restaurant.
Oh, ooh. It was the same exact one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, granted, she didn't disappear until 2005. They're completely unrelated. It's just a little...
Right.
Well, I just don't like it.
That is weird.
I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I just don't like it. Sorry, I'm not saying anything bad about Carlos and Charlie's. If you love Carlos and Charlie's, definitely go and drink their bottomless margaritas. But I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. So that night, after a formal night, and after dinner, the family changed clothes and headed to the Caribbean deck party aboard the ship.
That's more my speed.
Yeah. Well, and they were loving it. And it was all four of them. Brad even participated in a limbo contest.
Fun.
Which he won.
Oh.
So he was very pleased.
I love Brad already.
Around 1 a.m., I mean, it's a party.
This is a party.
Ron and Iva, good for them. Good on them. They decided to head back to their room, and Amy and Brad headed for the ship's dance club. We know that during these hours, Amy spent a good deal of time with a particular member of the ship's band. Remember Blue Orchid?
Yes, a musician.
A musician. And it was a bass player whose name was Alistair Douglas, but he more commonly went by the nickname Yellow. We know that the two talked and danced, and around 4 a.m., Brad decided to head back to the room, and about 30 minutes later, Amy also went back to the room.
At 4 a.m., you said?
At 4 a.m., I said.
Okay.
Listen, this is a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old on vacation.
I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Oh, gone are the days for us, but 4 a.m. it was.
Yes.
Now, Brad and Amy joined him on the balcony of their room, and the two enjoyed a nice brother-sister chat before Brad went to bed, leaving Amy on the balcony, casually relaxing in a deck chair. At 5 a.m., Ron, Amy's dad, woke up and kind of instinctually just checked on his kids.
Sure,
you know
of
how you
course.
do, like just in awareness of like, are the kids here?
Yeah.
And he noticed Brad was in his bed. He noticed Amy was still laying in the lounge chair, relaxing. And he's like, okay, great. It's 5 a.m. I don't know how much sleep the kids are going to get before our next day in Curacao, but they're at least in the room.
They're in. They're safe.
They're in. They're safe. So he nodded back off to sleep. Around 6 a.m., Ron woke again and realized Amy wasn't on the balcony anymore. And he started looking around the room and he realized she actually wasn't in the room at all. Ron did notice that her cigarettes and lighter were missing, but everything else was still there, including her shoes. Don't love that. Now, Ron did think this was strange, but again, you're just aboard a ship. It's not like she was getting off the ship. So he said, you know what? Maybe she just went up to the top deck to watch the ship dock in Curacao. Maybe she's watching the sunrise. She's grabbing a cup of coffee. She's just kind of enjoying the morning air.
With no shoes?
Well, I don't know.
That part right there, I'm like, she's overboard.
It's peculiar. But again, he didn't want to overreact. He said, okay, let's be reasonable, right? The chances of disappearing astronomically low. So he grabbed his shoes and he headed on up to the top deck to say, well, I'll just spend the morning with my daughter. You know, we're going to come back to the room in just a few minutes to get ready to go to breakfast and ready for the day. He started searching deck by deck, all the open decks that Amy could have been on. And the more he went to, the more this sinking feeling started creeping up because he couldn't find Amy anywhere.
And there's no entertainment going on at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it is now.
No, absolutely
so
not.
She's either on an open deck, maybe in a restaurant. Do they have any of the eateries or anything open at that time?
I think they have like a buffet that kind of stays open all the time, which I'm sure that he checked. Basically, he checked any kind of common areas.
Place she could have been.
As a matter of fact, at this point, he started the search at 6, but he searched for an entire hour. He went all over the ship trying to find her.
Man.
And you know that feeling, being a parent, of just, where is my child? That's literally all you can think about is, where is my child? So after about an hour, he went back to the room and he woke up Iva and in a complete panic and said, I cannot find Amy. So he woke up Brad and he said, you guys have got to help me find her. But it's so heartbreaking. So I watched an interview where Iva was retelling the story of Ron waking her up. And she said that he was so distraught and frantic that she barely even recognized him as her husband. I mean, he was just that out of his mind with worry.
Well, I can tell you that after an hour of searching for my child, even if she's 22 years old, I'm on a ship in the middle of the ocean. I guess now it's docked, but has been in the middle of the ocean. And last I saw my daughter, she was outside on a deck.
Balcony.
Yeah. And I've looked everywhere I could possibly look. And she's nowhere. She's either not on the boat anymore, or does somebody have her?
Right.
I mean, there's just no good place.
There's no good reason for her not to be found.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, the helplessness, because the thing is, even though he's looked everywhere that he can look, there's thousands of places that he can't look.
Right. That's correct.
Yeah. No, awful.
Yeah. So immediately upon waking, Ron and Iva head down to the security desk where they kind of explain their situation. And they, of course, ask the ship to do everything that they can to help them find Amy, including the delaying of the disembarkation of the ship's passengers to the port of Curacao.
Which makes sense. And also I can see how this is not going to happen.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Bingo. But you see how this is pretty tragic, because the Bradley family knows that any eyewitnesses, anyone that's possibly even thinking about a kidnapper or a murderer, is about to just get off of this boat. But again, the ship refused to delay the opening of the gangway. They also refused to make any announcements over the ship's PA system while everyone was still aboard the ship, because they didn't want to disturb the passengers.
See, and I've heard of that kind of an attitude in situations like this before where people paid good money for a vacation. We can't bother them with real life scary stuff because that would ruin my trip if I learned
Would it
somebody
really?
oh, if I oh, I'm an empath, but girl, if there is an empath, I am an empath. And if somebody on my vacation tells me they can't find their daughter, it's all I'm thinking about that day. I probably won't go on any excursions. I'm probably going to stay back and see how I can help find this person. Like that would
But would
just bother
you
me.
Okay, but would you be upset with having being told about it?
Oh, no, 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 no. No. Would I be
You know what
like,
I'm saying? Like you would feel
no,
for her, but would you say, "Ugh, you're ruining my vacation by telling me this
no, not
information?"
in that way.
Well,
It
and
would,
so that's what they
yeah.
were saying is like, now again, I understand what they're saying. We just don't want to worry anyone.
Yes, I would just, my vacation would be ruined because it should be fun and now I'm worried.
But you wouldn't be
Give me
critical
my
of
money back.
right, and you wouldn't be critical of the Bradleys for seeking help.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of what most people have said. Like, I wish they would have told us earlier.
Sure.
So maybe we could have helped. The best the ship's security team said was that they promised to do a thorough search of the ship after the passengers had departed.
Like for good or just for the day?
No, for the day. So
They're going to go in every room.
Well, they said they would do a thorough search.
Which to me means you're going to go in every room. You're going to go in every hallway. You're going to go in every closet. We're looking for a human.
Well, when a security team tells you they're going to do a thorough search, I see how that would be what you would expect. If you've been in a port of call on a cruise ship, you know that the majority of passengers do disembark the ship. So it really is kind of I'm not going to say a ghost ship, but really it is mostly crew members. A few passengers stay aboard. So it should have been pretty easy to go through the ship and to look in every area. And this is, of course, exactly what the Bradleys think is happening.
Oh, let me ask you this real quick, because I have only just been on one cruise many, many years ago. Does everybody get off the same like exit, or are there like 3 different exits off the ship? So in other words, if I'm Amy's mother, can I stand at this doorway and make sure Amy's not getting off this boat? Somebody's, pulling her off.
I think that's a great question. It really depends on, first of all, the design of the ship and the specific port of call, because several of these docks are a lot longer and a lot bigger, able to accommodate multiple access points.
Okay.
So I've been on both. I've been on some where there's only one exit and one entrance, and I've been on some that have it at the front and the back of the ship.
Okay.
Where you could do both. So I think it just kind of depends on the setup for that particular ship, that particular dock, and that particular day, quite honestly.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Now, around 5:30 that evening, the Bradleys met with the ship's captain, who assured them that the security team had searched every, quote, nook and cranny of the ship, and Amy was not aboard. The crew's conclusion at that point was that Amy had either fallen overboard or committed suicide.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Ooh, I don't know. I'm just trying for a second to put myself in that family's shoes.
I would
just
prefer not to.
So sorry. She either killed herself or we lost her.
Yeah. And that's kind of what they said. Sorry, we can't do any more. And now, both of those theories instantaneously outraged the Bradleys for a few reasons. First, Amy was afraid of the ocean. So the idea that she had fallen over seemed ridiculous to them because there's no way she's going to get close enough to the edge to fall over.
Okay, so when you said she was on her balcony, first of all, they've been out partying. Like, I'm assuming maybe she had some drinks. I mean, maybe I would want to know like how intoxicated, if at all, she was that night when she went partying. And then 2, from what I've heard, cruise ships, they're pretty small. So when you say balcony, I guess it's big enough to have a lounge chair out there, but it's probably not too much bigger, right?
Well, I have to say, there were 2 lounge chairs on her balcony. It was actually one of the more sizable ones.
Okay.
So you have to actively push up like next to the balcony like edge. They're made where you're not going to fall off.
Right. The edge, like you if you wanted to go overboard, it would probably take a little bit of work.
Yes. Like you would know. And as far as being intoxicated, we actually do have video footage of her.
Oh, okay.
And she in my opinion, was not acting at all intoxicated.
Okay.
She's doing dancing, she's socializing, she's talking, she's walking, but in no way does she seem out of control, inebriated. It wasn't their style. Brad never said anything. Like,
Okay.
no one has said that she was drinking, even other passengers. So maybe there was a cocktail, but even all this video that we have, she never has a drink in her hand.
Okay.
So
the idea of her getting drunk and then climbing up, standing on top of her, lounger and leaning over the side, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Okay.
No. If she did go overboard, it was not a result of being intoxicated.
Okay.
I think I can say that with a pretty good degree of certainty here.
Okay.
And as far as suicide, that also didn't seem to fit. In a blog post on the International Cruise Victims website, Iva wrote a journal entry that says, quote, "On the day before we left for vacation, Amy had adopted a female bulldog, and she was to pick up Daisy," is what she named her, so Daisy, "when we returned from our cruise. She had just moved into a new apartment and was starting a new job the following Monday. She had so many plans and was so happy about all of them."
That definitely doesn't sound like somebody who is suicidal.
Yeah. In addition, Amy took 15 rolls of film. Again, this is 1988.
Sure.
But she took 15 rolls of film with her on the trip to create a collage for her coffee table. She also purchased souvenirs for her friends and wrote postcards from Puerto Rico explaining she planned to be in Aruba the following day.
Okay. So she's a happy woman, living life.
It just doesn't seem like neither of these scenarios seem to fit. If she had gone overboard, the Bradleys felt confident it wasn't of her own.
Well, that's my next. If she
choosing.
didn't go overboard accidentally, now I'm thinking, did somebody throw her overboard? Like, that's terrifying. Attack her and then throw her overboard or something.
Right. So now the Bradleys are left with a pretty terrifying decision. The ship is about to leave. So they have to choose to either stay in Curacao, like depart the ship, or stay on the ship that the captain has told them their daughter is not on. I mean, a gut punch.
Right.
Iva Bradley said those grueling minutes as they were trying to decide what to do. I mean, the ship captain's like, all right, what's it going to be? You going to pack your stuff? Are you going to go? Or are you going to stay on? Like, make a decision because we've got to close this gangplank. And she said those minutes were they descended into chaos. They all of a sudden started trying to contact anyone they could because at that point they really felt like the ship's crew was taking care of all of it. But now they're like brushing your hands, like you're done. So now we are going to have to fight for this. So they started trying to call the consulate. They started trying to call the embassy. They tried to call the FBI. They tried to call the local police. They tried to call anybody that they could to try to get some help. Of course, at this hour, nothing's open. They're not able to reach anyone. So they make kind of the best decision that they can. And at that point, knowing Amy's not on the ship, they feel maybe she's still in Curacao. So they gathered all their belongings, walked off the ship, and watched their cruise ship sail away as they watched from the harbor.
That's just all different kinds of awful. I feel like I would have wanted to stay on the ship because that's where she was last. At the same time, also understanding that there's no police. What am I going to do? Enjoy the rest of my vacation? That's an impossible choice. But did they think that she got off when they docked? Did she think that somebody pulled her off?
I think that was their feeling from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And again, at this point, all they know is that the captain and the head of security has said, your daughter is not on this ship. We have searched, again, the quote, every nook and cranny.
Sure.
So you're going to have to go with that.
Right.
I mean, that's the information you have. You can only make a decision with the information you had. I think you would be torn either way.
No, it's an impossible decision.
It's an impossible decision.
I feel like I would literally be like, okay, you go on the ship and I'm staying here.
Well, and that could have been an option too.
Right.
But at that point, they decided to stay on Curacao.
Now, when people are getting off of the ships, I would assume they're not taking their luggage with them. Maybe like an overnight bag or like a tote or something like that. But they're not like taking bags large enough to like carry a body with, are they?
Oh, you mean if somebody was to have removed Amy from the ship?
Because I'm thinking, if it were me, I feel like I would set myself up by the exit as much as I could and just look for her. But if people are carrying like these ginormous bags and stuff like that, like who's to say she's not in one of them? I don't know. I'm just trying to think like what I would do in this helpless situation when there's nothing you can do.
Well, and again, this is at 5:30 in the evening. Everyone's already, been off the ship for almost 12 hours. Well, she's been missing for almost 12 hours.
Right.
The gangplank has been open for about 8 hours. Who knows what's come and gone out of the gangplank,
She could be anywhere.
She could be anywhere. Exactly. And at this point, their ability to gain any more traction with the ship's security had run its course.
Well, it sounds like it. And also, that's what we do. We lost an entire human being on this boat, either suicide or they just fell off or who knows. Sorry, family. Make a choice. You gonna stay and party or you gonna stay here? Like that's again, what we do.
Remember in the same conversation, they had also said, sorry, she either committed suicide or accidentally fell overboard. So to me, I would just be like, I need to talk to somebody else. And I think they felt like by getting off the ship, was their best opportunity to do so.
Yeah. That's crazy to me that's what happens on a cruise ship if someone goes missing. We shrug our shoulders and say sorry.
Well, that's what happened on this cruise ship.
Okay.
I don't know if that happens on every cruise ship, but that's certainly what happened on this cruise ship.
Eesh.
And I will say this case has gotten quite a bit of publicity, and I do think things are a little better now. This is almost kind of like the example of like what not to do.
Well, that's good.
It has gotten a lot better, as well as even technology has advanced. So now you get off the ship, you get on the ship, you go through metal detectors, you go through bag screening, you go through all these checks to make sure that there's nothing dangerous coming on the ship. Don't know that they were doing that in 1998.
True. I have to remember the time. Like, 1998, it sounds like not that long ago, but almost 30 years ago.
So there's a lot more emphasis on just safety in general now.
You're right. I'm looking at it from a 2024 perspective.
Very different. I mean, certainly they had some security measures in place, but it wasn't like we have now.
Sure.
Because now, even getting on the ship now, they literally have facial recognition. They know who you are when you even get on the ship through facial recognition. And that's incredible.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even know that existed back in 1988.
Right.
Shortly after the ship departed, the Bradleys were finally able to speak with the FBI.
Oh, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. The FBI told them they could help, but it would take them at least 24 hours to get an agent into Curacao. While the Bradleys waited, the FBI contacted the ship, which is now on its way to St. Thomas. And it was at this time that the security team aboard the ship revealed that a thorough search had not been completed, as the captain had reported. They had only searched common areas and restrooms, public restrooms, not individual quarters. Not every nook and cranny. It was then that the FBI told the Bradleys to meet the FBI and the ship in St. Thomas. They said, I don't care what the cost. Meet us in St. Thomas. We need to get back aboard that vessel.
Well, thank goodness the FBI is coming in and actually caring, first of all. And what the heck?
What the heck?
Do they just not care? Are they not allowed? Are they worried about backlash because I can imagine there would be some guests who are not going to enjoy having their room searched. Like, I totally get that. Now you are going to start having complaints. But who cares? It's a human being. And I'm sure somewhere in the paperwork, just like it is on any lease you sign or anything else, like, in the case of an emergency, we're allowed to look in your room.
Exactly. And I don't see anything wrong with even doing like a muster station. Muster station is where you're supposed to report to if there's an emergency on the ship, you need to board lifeboats, doing something like that. I mean, I get it. It's an inconvenience to passengers. Absolutely it is. But also, there's a missing woman.
Right.
And the FBI was like, we have got to get aboard. And the ship actually told the FBI no. First of all, what they said was the ship is registered in Nassau, Bahamas. So we don't report to anyone in the United States, and we're in international waters.
Okay, I was wondering about the international waters thing.
Yeah, so they said, you don't have any jurisdiction here. You're not allowed to board the boat. Finally, after a great deal of negotiation, they allowed 2 FBI officers onto the boat with the Bradley family. I think they really wanted to save face. Cruises rely so much on just confidence in the cruise industry. And I think they wanted to keep this idea of everything's fun and light and happy and nothing bad ever happens on cruises.
But you know what? The funny thing is, I now never want to go on this particular cruise line because they've lost my confidence. I would be much more confident if I felt like they did their due diligence.
Now, when the Bradleys again boarded the ship along with the FBI, the gig was up. Passengers knew something was happening. As the Bradleys were waiting for the elevator to head back to their room, two frantic passengers ran up to them and said they had been looking for them over the last 24 hours, not realizing they weren't aboard the ship because they had information about Amy. They said around 5:45, the morning of Amy's disappearance, they saw her exiting the elevator. They said she had turned out of the elevator and walked straight to meet a man whose name we've heard before.
Yellow?
Yep. Our friend Yellow.
I just got chills. Because now we know, things have changed.
It was also at this time that Brad remembered Yellow approaching him the same morning that Amy had disappeared and telling Brad how sorry he was that his sister was missing.
What?
It was at this moment that Brad realized that only the captain and the security team even knew about Amy's disappearance.
Are they sure? Because we know how word spreads.
It's possible.
So, because how did the two passengers know? The two passengers who just...
It's true.
Word just kind of starts spread, whispers turn into, because I'm assuming the family's running around like frantic. Have you seen my daughter?
Well, here's where it gets weird.
Okay.
After, of course, hearing this, that Amy was seen with Yellow that morning.
Right.
And that Brad reported this very strange situation, the FBI sprung into action and immediately started questioning Yellow.
Okay, good.
And Yellow immediately disputed Brad's claim and said he had never even spoke to Brad.
Okay, now we're getting suspicious. Why you lying, Yellow?
Why you lying, Yellow? They conducted a polygraph test on Yellow.
And he failed.
Passed.
Oh.
Passed.
Oh. Why would Brad would have, or would he have motive if he thinks this guy, or is he confused, or is Yellow just a psychopath who can pass polygraphs? I mean, we don't know.
Well, the fact is, okay, whether he said something to Brad or didn't, maybe he had total reason to know. Maybe you're right. He heard it through the rumor mill. He's like, oh my gosh, this girl I was dancing with, I can't believe she's missing. And maybe he wanted to just recant and be like, I didn't say that because I don't want to be involved. I'm not a part of it. But then how do you explain these women seeing Amy with Yellow at 5:45 in the morning?
So is he saying he also was not with her?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He's saying the last he saw her was that 4 a.m.
Okay, so devil's advocate, I would say, did these women see another woman with him? But what are the odds of that? Because we do know that Amy had hung out with him.
Right.
If they saw a woman who looked like Amy with him, there's a good chance it was Amy.
There's a good chance it's Amy. Right.
So why lie? Why lie if you're, if you got nothing to hide?
Yeah, and speaking of confirmation that they were together, around this time, the onboard videographer, who happened to be shooting some promotional materials for the cruise line, realized that he had videos from that deck party and the nightclub of Amy and Yellow together.
Okay.
He had multiple shots of the two of them dancing and talking throughout the evening, and immediately understanding the importance of this evidence, he promptly turned over the videos to the security team on the ship.
Oh no.
With the assumption that the videos would be given to the FBI.
No. Oh, man.
Shockingly, this never happened. It wasn't until a year later that the FBI...
A year later?
A year later. The FBI discovered that this evidence existed.
Well, at least they didn't throw it overboard.
Right? Now, if you are interested, the FBI did release these videos to the public to try to gain more information on Amy's case. So you can see them. If you just do a casual search, you can see Amy and Yellow dancing. At one point, they're holding hands. They're kind of in the corner together.
So is this like a romantic rendezvous? Are they interested in each other? It appears.
Maybe it's a little just vacation,
Okay.
whatnot. I mean, they're certainly not intimate, but they're definitely, you know,
flirting.
They're definitely a little flirty.
Okay.
Exactly.
But it's not necessarily like she spent the evening with him or anything
I
like
don't, it doesn't appear like that.
They're
at
just having
all.
fun.
They're just having fun. Exactly. Now, it does make me wonder, why did the cruise ship not hand this over? All I can think is that they just didn't want to make Yellow look worse than he already does. This is a very shady to me.
I don't understand why they can't cut through the red tape when you have a human life at stake.
Right.
We really care more about our company. We really care more about like procedure. We really care more about all this than we do this family.
I think this particular ship made some very strange decisions. Now, I have one more very bizarre detail.
Oh, no.
And if you've gotten shivers before,
oh, no.
Just wait for this one. Remember those formal night photos that were taken?
That I can see in my head.
Okay. Well, now how it works is before dinner or before a show, you get to pose, and then those photos are printed while you're at your activity, and then you can come back to the photo area, and these photos are all on display. And so you can look at them and choose to purchase them aboard the ship. Well, on the night of Amy's disappearance, again, the same night these photos were taken, all of her photos disappeared.
What?
They were no longer on the display shelves.
So, like, somebody purchased them?
Or just took them. And no one has been able to explain how none of those photos were still where they were originally displayed. The photographer confirmed that he printed them and placed them on the shelves, but they have never been able to find those printed photos.
And it was before she went missing.
It was before she went missing.
Ew.
Yeah, neither he nor the Bradleys have any idea where those photos went. Is that creepy?
It's like a souvenir.
It's creepy. I do not like it.
It's like a souvenir or like a I'm a stalker.
I don't know.
And I have my eye on this girl. Or like I don't want anybody to be able to say, have you seen this girl? So I'm going to take all the photos. Like any of these things.
All those theories. And I hate every one of them. I hate every one of them.
How have we seen this photo? Because it was still available. This was back in digital.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was digital, so they could just reprint it.
Okay.
But
ew, that is so
weird. Isn't that weird?
I'm assuming hers were the only one where every photo was missing that wasn't purchased.
That's correct.
And she went no, okay. Obviously something's up.
I told you there were too many like bizarre circumstances.
Yeah.
She didn't just fall overboard. I'm sorry.
No, something for everybody to kind of been obsessed with her already. I mean, she's a beautiful girl. Sounds like a lot of fun. So I get it. But like for everybody to already be so obsessed with her and then her go missing and then people knew she went missing who shouldn't know. And then all of her photos are gone. I mean, this is not a coincidence.
Right. Now, that Friday, the FBI was given permission to search the Rhapsody of the Sea with their canine team, but there was still no sign of Amy.
Oh, even with the canines, they couldn't find anything.
No. After this, they set up a reward fund of $25,000 for any leads directing to the conclusion of Amy's case. The next day, on Saturday, the cruise ended in Puerto Rico, and the Bradleys returned to Curacao to begin their own search. Because at that point, the FBI has confirmed she is not on this ship.
And now they have searched all of the staterooms.
Exactly. They went back to Curacao. They started passing out flyers with Amy's pictures on them, hoping that someone will come forward saying that they saw her. They were encouraged when a taxi cab driver said he watched Amy disembark their ship early on the morning of Amy's disappearance. He said she approached him and asked where she could find a phone. And he said he was certain it was Amy because he remembered her green eyes. Now, based on this description, the family felt confident it was Amy. And the driver told them 3 specific areas on the island to look for Amy, but unfortunately no other clues were found. The family continued their grueling, sleepless search for Amy for 4 days. On their final day in Curacao, Brad said he actually heard Amy call his name as the family was driving down the road.
Oh, I talk about chills.
Ooh. He said she had a distinctive way of saying his name, and he was positive that it was her. The Bradley family quickly made a U-turn in their rental car and drove after the van they believed the voice came from.
Oh, it came from a vehicle?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Stephanie.
I know. Unfortunately, when they ran down the van, though, it only housed a driver.
Oh.
Yeah, so Brad said either they tracked down the wrong vehicle or maybe he was just hearing what he wanted to hear.
Okay, so he's now second guessing
He's
whether he
second
heard it.
guessing. At that moment, he felt confident.
Sure.
But then, of course, when it didn't turn out to be right, he was like, well, maybe we just followed the wrong van or the wrong vehicle. Either way, heartbreak.
Yeah, the whole, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, was she calling for him and he thought it came from a van and instead it came down that alley, or like,
And I,
oh,
and
just
I,
what a
and I,
nightmare.
yeah. And even in an interview, he said, like, it haunts me. Like, was that her? And I picked the wrong
Oh,
car.
oh my gosh. Oh, because sound.
Yes, of course,
Sound.
it pings off everything. You're in a moving vehicle. So, but again,
Oh,
he does recognize, he's like, it's just the thing that I wanted to hear so badly. And so maybe I made it up, but I feel like I heard it. He's such a good guy. Like, I
I
hate
know.
this.
I want to
I
hug him.
know.
Oh,
Now, sadly, they've run out of anything to do. They're not sleeping. They have nowhere else to go. So they decided to head home after this, after their
oh,
4 days of searching.
what are they supposed to do?
Right. Right. Well, I'll tell you what they did do. They headed home and set up a command center in
Okay.
their house. Now, this $25,000 reward had definitely started to generate a lot of leads. Unfortunately, most of them were false, people just looking for reward money or people that, you think you see something, you don't really see what you thought you saw.
Sure.
So I'm not saying all of them were just, treasure hunters, but there was a good amount of that.
Well, and I can imagine if I saw somebody that looked like her and I wasn't sure, I would be the type who would call it in just to be sure so I could sleep that night. And probably it wasn't her, but see something, say something kind of thing. So
Sure.
I can see where it gets like a lot to sift through and probably a lot of disappointment.
Yeah. Well, two of the tips seem to have a bit more credibility. So in August of 1998, 5 months after she went missing, a Canadian tourist named David Carmichael reportedly had an encounter with a woman he believed to be Amy. In an interview with Dr. Phil, Carmichael explained, quote, "A friend, Brian, and I were scuba diving on the island of Curacao. I noticed 3 people walking along the beach. One of them was a young girl, and she was flanked by 2 fellows. She had 2 tattoos. One of them was of a gecko, and the other one was of a Tasmanian devil. The girl walked towards me. She started to stare at me, and just as she was about to say something, the fellow motioned her away. In May of 1999, I saw the segment on Unsolved Mysteries. The minute I saw her picture and saw her face, I realized that she was the girl on the beach." So this encounter happened in August of 1998, but he didn't report it until 1999. So it was a full year after, but he swears up and down these very distinctive tattoos that Amy had that this was her.
Because she did have those 2 tattoos.
Yes. So Amy had very distinct tattoos. One was a Tasmanian devil that she drew herself. It's like the cartoon character and he's dribbling a basketball because she was really into basketball. And that was on her shoulder. Another was a sun on her lower back. She also had a Chinese symbol on her right ankle and a lizard on her navel. So very distinct tattoos. And those will definitely play a role in this as we go forward because it's an obvious thing to see.
Sure. And here's the thing. I can remember that this one day at this one place, I ran into a very handsome man. But am I going to see that man on TV a year later and be like, that was him? I mean, you see weird tattoos all the time. Am I going to remember that for a year? I don't know that I will.
David Carmichael, I do believe, is a
Mhm.
legitimate lead. I do believe he believes what he
Yeah,
saw.
sure. It sounds like he does.
As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that this is taken even more seriously is one of the first things out of his mouth was, I don't want the reward money. I just want to help this family. And also, he said it was just marked in his mind because of how weird the circumstances were.
That might be the fact that if she looked frightened or if she looked like she was going to ask for something and the man looked abusive or scary or that. But for me, just to walk past somebody on a beach,
No,
that's
I think
not
if it had just been 3 people walking, I don't know if it would have been notable. He said, but the way she looked at me, it just felt very intense.
Okay.
And so I think that's why it was more kind of implanted in his memory. But again, maybe it wasn't her.
Well, if not, He has a very vivid imagination, I guess, to remember all of these tattoos
Right.
that matched.
Now, of course, him describing this situation opened the door to some of the Bradleys' worst fears, that maybe Amy was being trafficked or was now being forced into sex slavery, the fact that she was kind of being controlled by these two men. And later, an American sailor would also come forward, saying that in 1999, he was in a brothel in Curacao when a young woman approached him and told him that her name was Amy Bradley. She asked for his help. Immediately after she said these words, two men in the bar escorted the woman upstairs.
I have chills again.
Mm-hmm. Now, fearing he would get in trouble for being at a brothel.
No, he did not. No.
Did nothing.
No.
He did not report this until 2 years later. So, of course, when the FBI attempted to locate this brothel to try to locate Amy, it turned out the brothel had burned to the ground. So, obviously, its inhabitants are in the wind.
That makes me so mad.
Yes, it does.
Because the idea of like trafficking and like sex slavery and stuff feels like so far off to me. It's like one of those things that like, yeah, it always comes up as theory, but it's very rarely something I think has a whole lot of weight. But honestly, in this case, I'm kind of like, that kind of sounds like what may have happened.
It's possible. Now, both of these reports, which again, a lot of people give credibility to, the Bradleys didn't even hear about these until the information came out later. So these are sightings that happened of Amy within the first year of her disappearance, but because of the circumstances, they didn't even know that these had happened until 2 years later.
They didn't even know they should be looking right there where she went missing.
Correct.
Because it sounds like she's still right there. And that first year after she went missing, it makes the most sense. That's when she would have the highest chance of still being alive, of still being in the area, I guess.
Right. And I mean, if you believe these reports, yeah, she's still there and was possibly being trafficked or again, working in sex slavery. Now, as you can imagine, for Ron and Iva, things were looking very bleak in their world. That wasn't until they got an email in the fall of 1999 from a man named Frank Jones. Jones told the family that he was a former U.S. Army Special Forces officer with a team of ex-Army Rangers and ex-Navy SEALs who might be able to find and rescue Amy.
Oh.
Iva said, quote, he told me that he'd put Amy on his own back and swim her out of there.
Well, that's the guy you want on your search party here.
Heck yeah. And at this point, there were no leads from any of the officials on the Dutch island of Curacao, and the investigation by the FBI had made little progress. And so literally, I can imagine this email from Jones, like when he showed up, it's like some kind of angel, right? Like he's going to get in there with his Special Forces team and find Amy for us. Jones was up front and said this rescue mission would be costly because he needed to hire professionals to do this difficult, possibly dangerous task, but he felt confident that he could find and rescue Amy. After the Bradleys fronted Jones's investigation to the tune of several $1,000s, Jones sent two of his men down to Curacao to check out the lead he had received from a cook named Judith Margarita. Now, information from Margarita revealed that Amy was being held by heavily armed Colombian guards in a housing complex protected with barbed wire. She also said that she regularly saw Amy shopping at a grocery store and working out at the gym, and that she was often with a man with long blonde hair and tattoos all the way down one arm. So this is some pretty specific information.
Yeah, I mean, I would be hopeful to hear this.
Absolutely. Like, okay, she has seen her. And more importantly, she's alive.
Yes, of course.
I mean, first and foremost, she's alive, but also we got to get her out.
Right. But there's hope.
There's hope.
Absolutely. For the first time in a long time.
Absolutely. Jones sent the family a report saying that his men set up surveillance points at the location Margarita indicated and observed Amy in a, quote, dark green SUV driven by a captor with, again, long blonde hair. The report said that Amy was in a dangerous situation and again under guard. Things escalated a week later when Jones's men were, quote, fired upon by an estimated 10 men. Now, I mean, if I'm Amy's parents, I'm terrified for her safety at this point.
you got some hope, like you got some good news, and yet you're so far not out of the woods. You're just still so deep in the woods.
That's correct. Over the next few months, Jones told the family he sent more operatives to the island and provided a series of reports on the latest sightings of their daughter. The family was terrified that Amy was again in imminent danger of possibly even being executed by her captors if they find that they're being like surveilled.
Now, have they seen any of this footage of Amy?
Well,
the family?
That's coming. So
Okay.
Jones finally tells them, like, it's time to get her out of there.
Okay.
Like, I'm worried about her safety now. But in order to do this, I need money. Like, I need to be able to fund this rescue mission. And so the Bradley family was obviously ready to do whatever they needed to do to help. But they also wanted proof that their doctor was actually there, especially with the sum of money that he's asking for. I mean, he's asking for like $100,000.
I have to say, my spidey senses are tingling just a little bit. I hope I'm wrong, but they're tingling.
Well, I mean, in response to their request, Jones sends them photographs of Amy sitting on a beach with a blonde-haired man, a long-haired blonde man standing next to her. Now, the woman in the photo is the same build as Amy, the same skin tone, and most importantly, also has the same ankle tattoo.
Okay.
Iva said, when I got the pictures, I knew Amy was okay, and it was just a matter of time.
Okay, so Iva's saying this is my daughter.
Iva's saying this is
okay.
her daughter.
Well, then what else do you need?
The Bradleys sent Jones the money. I mean, get her out. Do what you need to do. This brought the total amount paid to Jones to $210,000, $24,000 out of the Bradleys' own pocket, plus $186,000 from a fund set up for Amy's search by the nation's missing children's organization. This is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
On the day of the rescue mission, the family flew down to Florida and was waiting at a hotel. And they waited, and they waited. Days went by.
No.
With no word. Then the Bradleys' phone rang. But it was not from Frank Jones. It was an ex-Special Forces sniper named Tom Buxholt. He was the man positioned outside of the Army compound in Curacao. But what Buchholz told the Bradleys would be a gut punch. This supposed compound where Amy was being held was just a normal house owned by a perfectly normal couple. Everything Frank Jones had told the couple was a lie. Buchholz had overheard a conversation Frank had with the couple, and he could not believe what he was hearing. Frank made the entire thing up.
How did he provide these photos? They were just photos of a girl who looked a lot like Amy?
Turns out the photos were completely faked. Frank paid a woman to be made up to look like Amy and even had a tattoo artist fake the tattoo. It was just a sketch that went on her. And the man standing next to this woman, reported to be Amy, was one of Frank's team members dressed up in a blonde wig. As a matter of fact, the photos weren't even taken in Curacao. They were taken in Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, no. Have you seen these photos?
I have. I cannot. I mean, I just cannot with this.
There's a special place for people like Frank.
He was just a literal con man.
Which is bad enough, but given the context of this grieving family and you are giving them hope that they're going to see their daughter again?
In interviews I've seen with Iva, she said, you know what? The money's the money. But what we really lost was 2 years where I could have actually been searching for my daughter. I can't get time back. That was a time when I actually may have had a chance of finding her. And you took that.
Oh my gosh. This is the saddest case ever, Stephanie.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Now, in February of 2002, federal prosecutors in Richmond charged Frank Jones with defrauding the Bradleys of $24,444 and the nation's missing children organization of $186,416. Jones pleaded guilty to mail fraud in April and was sentenced to 5 years in prison in order to repay every cent to the Bradleys, which I imagine he's paid back zero. And remember Margarita?
Yes.
She was a real person. she was a cook. And she also managed to scam the Bradleys out of $8,000 as well for her part in the fraud. Jones and Margarita were not the first people the Bradleys thought took advantage of them by claiming to have information about their daughter. But the Bradleys say they had no choice but to trust. They felt like there was hope and they just had to trust.
Right. It's either do nothing because we have nothing, or follow this lead that I so desperately want to believe is true.
Yeah. Ron Bradley said, if there's a chance, I mean, what else do you do? If it was your child, what would you do? So I guess we took a chance and I guess we lost. Yeah, tears. Like I'm getting a little cloudy right now. Now, the next sighting of Amy, which seems somewhat credible, wasn't until 2005. So we're talking about a whole nother 6 years.
Eek.
A woman named Judy Moore was on vacation in Barbados when she entered the restroom of a department store. While in the restroom, a woman escorted by 3 very large, gruff men walked into the restroom. Judy, who was in a stall, continued to hide in her stall. I imagine this would be quite frightening. And she overheard part of a conversation between the woman and the men. And it seemed to be something about the men trying to get the woman to not back out of some kind of deal. They kept saying something about like the deal goes down at 11, somehow trying to cajole her into getting her to play part in some kind of agreement, some kind of deal. Now, the men left the restroom briefly, leaving the woman by herself, and Judy snuck out of her stall and tried to speak to the woman. She felt like the woman said Virginia. She then asked the woman's name, and the woman responded in almost a whisper and said, Amy. Later, when Judy reviewed photos, she did feel like the woman she had spoken to greatly resembled Amy Lynn Bradley as well. Now, immediately after hearing that there was someone else in the restroom, the men re-entered the bathroom and Judy ran away. I mean, she was like, I got to get the heck out of here. The men grabbed the woman and shuffled her off. Sketches were eventually made of the men and of the woman that was believed to be Amy, but ultimately the tip has led nowhere. No one has come forward. Also in 2005, another email came in from someone who believed they found evidence Amy was alive. The evidence turned out to be photos grabbed from an online site for sex workers in the Caribbean. In these photos is a woman who seems to be on a bed and she's posing seductively in various states of undress. The pictures of this woman is an almost exact match to Amy, except for new longer hair, which is like teased up and brushed back. This was one of the most exciting tips Ron and Iva had received in a long time. And so they sent the photos to an ex-FBI agent who specialized in photo analysis. And the agent said he was absolutely certain the woman in the photos was Amy. However, attempts to determine where the photo originated from have been unsuccessful. They weren't able to find the IP address where it was really originally uploaded. And of course, a lot of these sex work sites, they just move all over the place. And so there's no way to actually track down where the photo was taken. But in an interview I saw, Iva said, the FBI agent said, I'm willing to stake my career that it is Amy. Felt that certain. With no proof that Amy is actually still alive, she was legally declared dead in 2010. Interestingly, that same year, a new piece of possible evidence literally washed up on the beach in Aruba when a tourist found what appeared to be a human jawbone. Now, this bone was tested and it was determined to be from a Caucasian woman. However, this jawbone has not been linked to Amy Bradley. At the time of her disappearance, Amy had short brown hair, green eyes, and had estimated to stand 5 feet 6 inches tall and weigh about 120 pounds. On the 20th anniversary of her disappearance, the FBI released photos showing how Amy might have aged. She would currently be approaching her 50th birthday. Amy's brother Brad said in a video shared by the FBI, quote, myself and my parents have had to endure a lot of sadness, but the last thing that I ever said to Amy was, I love you, before I went to sleep that night. Knowing that's the last thing I said to her has always, got a little teary, Knowing that's the last thing I said to her has always been very comforting to me. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Amy Lynn Bradley, please contact the FBI and help bring some closure to this precious family.
Well, and I'll tell you, think I mentioned it before. I don't normally jump to like the whole she's been trafficked thing, but I kind of feel like maybe that's what happened. And maybe Yellow, because I'm assuming probably kind of went on this same trip over and over again. Maybe he like found a way to maybe make some extra cash or.
There are many people that think that was the case. And, even those missing photos, like those have that, I don't know, that detail to me, it just gets like stuck in my brain. And I wonder even if she was trafficked, could those have been like, look at this girl?
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, maybe they took the
and maybe
photos.
That's a stretch. Maybe I'm just connecting two pieces that don't really go together. But to me, that would make sense.
Right. Yeah. Because I don't know what they look for in a victim. I don't know if they look for a certain like look or just somebody who's maybe they think going to be easier to grab, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the fact that the photos are missing, what do you think about this one?
Right.
And trying to get her off of the boat.
Right.
That's rough.
Yeah. This is a rough case. And, I think I said it in our episode previously. I thought this one was going to be much more like cut and dry. Like they sell her, then they didn't see her anymore. But this has a lot more twists and turns, like her connection with Yellow, and then these possible sightings. There were people just confirmed that it was her. And then, I don't know, these photos that popped up in 2005 where the FBI agent said, that's absolutely her. It does make you wonder, like, is she still out there, being trafficked, which would be, I don't know.
In a lot of ways, that's almost worse to think about because you know what I mean? Like, that's been her life for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And her family is just so incredibly precious. And it's clear through watching interviews, like how much they loved each other and cared about each other. And, it's like, why do bad things have to happen, to good people? Amy seemed like genuinely a sweet person that cared about other people and had such a wonderful connection with her family. And again, knowing she had like a bad feeling about the trip and stuff, just all of it all together makes this one really tough.
Yeah. Well, and it was a reward for a job well done. Right. And it was supposed to be this big family vacation. I mean, not every 20-something still goes on vacation with their entire family.
Right.
So yeah, this is rough.
That's a rough one.
Rough one. All right, well, why don't you cheer us up with telling us about our Branch of Hope recipient for the month of August?
Yeah, I will. So our Branch of Hope recipient is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which we covered in our Marjorie West case. And if you haven't heard that one, please go and listen to it. It is, quote, the most mysterious
missing persons case, right?
Well, yeah, but they said it much more eloquently.
Well, excuse them. Oh, well.
Get with the program, Cynthia. But it was the most mysterious case of the missing, I think is what it was said. But
Pretty sure that's what I just said.
Well,
but
I said it better. Okay, just let it go. But please go listen to that. And of course, I've been watching the Olympics, so I'm going to use the word the goat of all child services, the Center for National and Exploited Children. Man, doing good things, helping to identify the deceased, helping to find children, to publicize missing children, to produce aged progression photos of missing children in order to bring them home and to bring some closure to their families. So we are incredibly fortunate to be able to pair with them this month of August, our 1-year anniversary.
Yes, happy anniversary to us.
Happy anniversary to us.
And thanks, listeners. Happy anniversary to you too.
Exactly. To all of our Patreon members, we love you guys. If you want to help being part of making something great, you can donate to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children by going to our website, finding their contact information. You can also donate through our organization if you would like to do so. The easiest way to do that is actually just joining our Patreon, because we give a portion of all those proceeds directly to our sponsored organization of the month. Let's see what else. If you want to talk to us, you can email us at thedarkoakpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. We got all the goodies there. So you know what? We are here for you.
Thanks for listening, Shiver Seekers.
Bye-bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.